Welcome to all of you that are here. My name is Greg Shapiro. I am, as of today, the admissions counselor for the Master's in Psychology program. I have been in this role for the last year and a half. But with me today, I do have a couple of folks here. One is Dr. Julia Klausli. And Dr. Klausli, if you'd like to introduce yourself, that would be great.
Yeah, love to. Hello, everybody. So glad to be here tonight. I am the program director for the Masters in Psychology. Love our program. I love the students in our program. We have a very great variety of types of students come through this program. 25% of our students live overseas, which just is great for wonderful interactions. And people from professional settings to ministry settings in this program. So, welcome. So happy to be here tonight.
Great, great, thank you. And I'm also going to introduce you all to Michelle Drennan. And Michelle Drennan is actually going to be, starting tomorrow, the new admissions counselor for this program. So, Michelle, if you'd like to introduce yourself, that would be great too.
Okay, can you all hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, well, I'm
Yep.
Michelle Drennan, and for many years, I actually was the admissions counselor for Divine Mercy for the Masters in Psychology online. So I have lots of successful graduates out there, and now I have the joy because I decided to become the alumni relations manager because we really needed an alumni touch. And Greg has actually been promoted to another position in admissions in our organization. So for a few days, myself and a gentleman named Steve Showalter will be connecting with you all. And I think you're going to have a really exciting webinar tonight to learn some great things about a wonderful program. And I look forward to serving you all in the next few days until we identify a correct candidate for replacing Greg, who's done a wonderful job along with Dr. Klausli in our program. And we have a joy of talking to new students, referrals, people who are going to really enrich their lives with the Masters of Psychology. So thank you, Greg, for the introduction. And I look forward to learning some new things tonight myself.
Thank you, Michelle. And for all of you that are guests, the university system changes so much, and one of the things that changes, of course, is the curriculum. We stay up to date, and it's something that we do because of the accreditation. So, like Michelle said, she was the admissions counselor at one point, but because of these updates and ways of improving, she'll also be learning a little bit more in here too. So it's just one of the benefits. So without further ado, let's get started. And this is what we're going to be focusing on today. So again, there will be a Q&A section. So any questions that come up, feel free to drop them in the chat section or the Q&A. But we're going to be talking about who we are as a university and the culture of the school and the different programs, but primarily, of course, talking about this program, the Masters in Psychology. That leads to number two. We're going to be talking about that as well as the different concentrations in the program. This is a great way of tailoring the program to your interests and goals. And then also the career opportunities. A lot of you might be curious what you can do professionally with this degree, or maybe what you can do within your vocation with a master's in psychology. And then lastly, we'll also dive into funding, different ways of funding your education. We have scholarships, we have something called a memorandum of understanding. That's another way of reducing your tuition, and we'll dive into that. And then, of course, at the very end, we will open the floor to all of you so that both Dr. Klausley and I can answer your questions. So the first thing I'll highlight is the mission of the school. And ultimately, we're a school of psychology and social sciences. So we focus on psychology, clinical psychology, counseling, but our mission is to integrate it with the Catholic Christian teaching on human dignity. That's a big part of our identity. In fact, that really is our identity, and it's why we came into existence. And it's not required that you're Catholic, though it is very important to note that that is exactly what our identity is. So it's a big part of what you're going to find within the courses, and that's what the integrative component will be. Now, along with that, we do have different programs here. And so we do have two different schools. We have the School of Counseling, and we also have the Institute for the Psychological Sciences. Some people call it IPS. It's been traditionally known as that. So in the School of Counseling, that's where we have the Masters in Counseling program. And that's a great option for those that are looking to become LPCs, licensed professional counselors. And so if that's your goal, that's great. I would suggest speaking with our other advisor, Julie Cipriano. She's the admissions counselor for that program. And then we also have in IPS the PsyD in clinical psychology. That's a 5-year program for those that are looking to become licensed clinical psychologists. For that one, students are on campus. It's one of the requirements for APA. And so if that's your goal, then that's also great. And we'd be happy to speak with you about that. Though, of course, for this one, we're looking at the Masters in Psychology. And of all the programs, this one is the only one that's done completely online from beginning to end. And it's also done asynchronously. So in other words, you have the flexibility to log into your classes at any time that works within your schedule. We use a platform called Canvas. It's very user-friendly. I have experience with that one and other ones like Blackboard, but I found that Canvas is actually probably the best option, especially for those that are doing online for the first time. Now, one thing I will highlight too, while it is asynchronous, there are still a few parts to this where you might be logging in at specific times. It's not as common as you would find with the majority of the program, but we do have a virtual residency. And the virtual residency is one example where you would be logging in at a specific time. Now, this virtual residency does take place toward the 7th week of your first course. It doesn't always happen. It could depend on the time of year, but that's just traditionally when it happens. And it's a great opportunity for the students to connect with each other, with their cohorts, with their professors. And the professors dive deeper into that integrative component and what to expect throughout the duration of the program. So, Dr. Klausli, did you want to add anything to that before I continue on?
No, that's what we've just added the virtual residency this last year, so it's still newer in the program. And it really has come out of that feedback from our students to want to connect more, want to get to know better, stay connected throughout the program. So we have 2 full days. We give an introduction into integration. What is the Catholic Christian vision of the person, and how does that inform the way we do psychology here at DMU? It's a core part of how we look at the person. And also we're starting with some skills practice, listening, attending, empathic listening, just getting people in that relational space. And most students will connect through a WhatsApp group during course 1 already. They stay very connected. So it's nice to have seen everybody, to have met faculty, to have kind of been in that same space. So people have really enjoyed that addition to the program.
That's great. All right, well, I'll continue on. Thank you, Dr. Klausli. So the next thing I will share with you is our accreditation. We are institutionally accredited through the, oh gosh, I'm blanking out on it now. The Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, excuse me. So this is one of the 7 major accrediting bodies. We call it SACS, SACS for short. But this is, again, our accrediting body, and we hold to a very high standard of our education because of this accreditation. If you look at the bottom right side, you'll see NC Sarah. Now, you might be asking, what does that mean? This is another component to our accreditation. The NC-SARA stands for the National Council for State Authorization Reciprocity Agreement. And what that means is that regardless of where you're located, whether you're in Virginia or you're in California or you're in England or in Nigeria, your degree will have that same recognition of coming from an institutionally accredited institution. And lastly, you'll see at the bottom left side, APA, American Psychological Association. Now, one thing to note, this accreditation, this is a programmatic accreditation um, that you would find only at a doctoral level, but we still use that same APA writing style in this one. So we make sure that we're preparing students to thrive once they're in the workforce. So I will continue on. So just to recap, this program is completely online. We are regionally accredited, institutionally accredited. And also, one thing to highlight, the GRE is not required. So you can breathe. This is something that you won't have to worry about when applying. Now, what I want to do is talk with you all about the different concentrations in the program. And we do have 5 different ones. So the first ones that we'll highlight are leadership psychology, pre-PhD in marriage and family studies. So leadership psychology is a great option for those that are looking to use their degree more so within a sort of industrial and organizational setting. So that could be within a corporation, some sort of business environment, an organization. And a lot of people that work within HR or use it within consulting or even life coaching choose leadership psychology. It's not a requirement that you work in those fields for this. This is just probably the most popular one I've seen, but it's great for any of those that are either currently working in some sort of leadership capacity or planning to do that. And it ties in things like positive psychology. So it's very useful for those that are, again, looking toward that sort of direction with their degree. And then the next one, pre-PhD, this concentration is great for those that are planning to eventually go forward with their doctorate, primarily with a PhD. There is a difference between a PsyD and a PhD. But one thing to highlight, it's more so for those that are planning to use their degree in more of a research setting or more so in academia. There is a capstone in the program. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But in this one, you do have the option of either doing the capstone or doing a thesis. It's not a prerequisite that you do the pre-PhD if you're looking to get your doctorate, but it's very useful because it's going to better prepare you for that. Oh, my light turned off. Give me 1 second. Okay, and the next one is marriage and family studies. And for those of you who might be currently working with this sort of population or planning to do that, whether you're working in social services or ministry, marriage and family studies is a great choice just to get a little bit more clarity, a little bit more background in the marriage unit, the family unit, that sort of thing. Now, the other 2 concentrations that we offer, the fourth one is human services counseling. Now, I shared at the very beginning that this program, it's not a counseling program. Keep that in mind, but you are still learning some counseling techniques, or at least skills that can be applied in a what I would like to say lowercase c counseling format. So if you're working within case management or you're working within parish counseling, and again, lowercase c counseling, you're not licensed, but you're still working with individuals, this is a great choice for that. Human services counseling is especially useful for those that are working, excuse me, in more of a human services direction. And then the last one is self-design. Now, this is sort of a bonus concentration. In the program, you are taking a total of 11 courses, and out of those 11, 3 of them are the electives that you're taking. Self-design just allows you to pull electives from all of the other 4 concentrations that I'd highlighted. So that way you can further customize the program to your interests. So I will continue on. Excuse me. Now, this is just to highlight the core concentrations that we have. On our website, you're more than welcome to visit the website after this webinar, and you can see the different electives as well. But these are the different courses, the core courses that you would be taking. The electives can fall at different places, and it could really depend on when you enroll. It could depend on which electives you're taking. So I can't guarantee exactly when those will take place, but they do fall sort of in between the different core courses. And I'm sharing this as well because I do like to highlight that we do have a lot of different types of students that go into this program. Many of you might already be active in the field. You may have been active in it for many years, and this is just a way for you to freshen up on your skills, or maybe this is a way for you to advance in your field. And many of you might even be recent graduates from your undergrad, and this is just going to be your next step before you enter into the workforce or into your religious vocation, perhaps. So again, we have a lot of different types of students in the program, and they enter into it for many different reasons. Now, next, let's talk about the career opportunities. I'd highlighted earlier that this program is not a licensure preparation program. Now and then, whenever I share that, I will have students asking, "Does that mean does that mean that I can't do anything with this degree?" On the contrary, this is a very useful degree to have, and it works very well in many different directions. So while it's not designed for you to become licensed, it's great in whether you're working in social services or ministry or in education, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that within industrial and organizational positions. So again, this means working in an organization, working in more of a business environment. These are a few examples. So we have graduates that have used this degree in human resources. They've used it within research, employee training, marketing, public relations. So again, this is a very, very valuable degree to have because of your communication skills and your writing skills and just your understanding of how the human mind works. Now, next, I will share with you the social and mental health services positions. These are some examples of what individuals may do with their degree. And I'll share a few things as well. So one thing, for instance, that you're seeing is behavioral analyst. There are a few things in here that might require some additional work. So if you're looking to go into ABA, odds are you'll have to take some additional courses just so you can meet the BCBA requirements. But getting a master's in psychology is a great start because you'll still need those foundational courses. And then, of course, working as a case manager, working within a rehabilitation setting, or um, as a human service worker. I even highlighted counseling, lowercase c counseling, mind you. So grief and loss counseling, again, more so within a parish setting, and addiction counseling is another example. In some states, they don't require that you're licensed, but you might go through a certain sort of certification with that. So again, these are just a few more examples of how you can use this degree, but specifically within the sort of social services direction. And next we have education. And many of you might already be working in education. It's very common for educators and school administrators to pursue a master's in psychology. But for those of you that might not even be doing that, this is a great option for those of you who want to teach psychology in more of a community college setting or in a high school setting or working in some other position in higher education. And then we also have government and law enforcement. Um, Having a master's in psychology is very useful if you're looking to go more into being going into victim advocacy or going into some form of criminal profiling or serving within voc rehab. So again, these are just some other examples of the versatility of this degree. And then lastly, ministry. We do have a lot of people that do work within ministry that end up pursuing this degree. And these are some examples of what folks have been able to do with their degree or how they've been able to advance or continue on with their vocation. So whether you're working within a parish setting, so within parish ministries, or if you're working within the diocese, so if it's with the Office of Marriage and Families, or victims assistance, or if you're doing marriage preparation, that sort of thing, this is a great degree to have for that. In fact, I'll even highlight faith formation is very common for those who might work within a seminary. Just having a background and understanding and being able to recognize perhaps mental health difficulties of others is very important so that they can help those in figuring out where they should go next with their vocation. And I like to share just a couple of examples of our graduates from DMU in this program. So on the left, you have Emily Leadham, and she is now serving as the executive director for what's now called the Lord Center of her diocese. They basically focus on marriage and families and with the tribunal. So she's actually the one that's overseeing the counselors and the psychologists, and she's running the whole sort of system uh, with that diocesan office. And then on the right, we have Ruth Dorset Hanna. She's a consultant, and she's been able to further her education, or rather, further her career, and she's been able to do that with her master's in psychology. So next, we're going to talk about the time frame and the cost and the funding and all that sort of thing. One thing I will highlight, a very common question is how long does it take to complete this degree? And you do have a few different options. This is probably the most flexible program that we offer here, primarily because it is done online. So one option is to complete your degree in 26 months. And by doing that, that means that you're taking one course within an 8-week term. Now, a term is not the same as a semester. You typically have 2 terms within a semester. The summer is sort of an outlier that's a little bit shorter. But if you're doing the program in 26 months, then expect to be taking one course within 8 weeks. And typically that means that you're committing somewhere between 15 to 20 hours per week. Every student's different. Some students are a little bit faster in their learning process. Others, they might need to take a little bit more time absorbing the information. And it could also depend on the course that you're taking within a term. Some courses might require that you take a little bit more time to research and study up on. And then others might be maybe more familiar to you that you'll be able to not have to commit as much time. So it could really vary. Now, the next one is the 16-month track. And this is more of our fast track. They're both considered full-time, but the 16-month track is more of an accelerated option. And on average, this would mean taking 2 courses per term. Not every term would be 2, but for many of them, that would be the case. And so usually students are committing somewhere between 25 to 30 hours per week when they're taking 2 courses within a term. Now, let's talk about the cost for just a second, because you're seeing a figure there. And I do want to highlight first that we do have scholarships and other ways of reducing the tuition. This is the baseline cost. For the 26-month track, we're looking at this one as being 27,818. But again, there are different ways of funding. We'll talk about that and other ways of even bringing the cost down. For the 16-month track, it does come out less because every term that you're taking 2 courses, that second course is going to be 25% reduced. So again, when you have a conversation with Michelle or with Stephen or whoever it might be, um, they'll ask you about your time commitment, the support that you're getting, just to see which track is best for you. Now, there are different ways of funding your education, and one common way is by utilizing federal aid. So, financial aid, student loans, that's an option. If that's something that you're looking to do, then students they apply through FAFSA, and they ultimately have a conversation with our financial aid department, and they help them get set up there. Now, another option would be funding through a payment plan, doing sort of a pay as you go option. And so their installment set up per term. And again, for those of you that are not looking to use financial aid but would rather fund out of pocket as you're going, that's another way of doing it. Um, and then for other people, they might actually even get some sort of additional funding. If your employer, I don't know if you've, for those of you who are guests here that have spoken with your employer to see if furthering your education would be something that they would value, they might actually be open to helping out in funding. So that's always a great conversation to have with your employer. Now, the next thing would be the different scholarships. And Um, you're only seeing 6 here, but there are 13 different scholarships available. And as a student, you have the ability to apply up to 4 of them and receive up to 2. And they range between the dollar amount to the percentage, and it can really vary. You're seeing different figures here. So it ultimately depends on what you qualify for and which scholarships you're applying for. So that's one option. Another option of reducing your tuition is through a partnership, or what we call a memorandum of understanding, or for short, an MOU. And these are just some examples. These are not the full list, but these are some examples of partnerships that we do have. So if any of these are connected with you, if you are a graduate of any of these schools, whether it's Belmont Abbey or Ave Maria, if you're connected with Focus, or uh, whether you're a Legionary of Christ or Regnum Christi. Um, these are opportunities for us to find ways of reducing your tuition. Um, but of course, if you're not connected with any of these, then be sure to still have that conversation with Michelle or Stephen, because there are still ways of building MOUs, even with your immediate parish. So again, there's always an opportunity there. So that leads us to the end. And unfortunately, I do not have Stephen's contact information here, but we do have Michelle's. So feel free to screen grab her information. That's her email address, alumni@divinemercy.edu, and her telephone number that is there as well. I also included in that blue box, there's a code. And so if you decide to apply, feel free to include that code where it says CCMMP 1999, and that is going to allow us to waive the application fee, which is typically $55. But if you put that code in, we'll waive it for you. So at this point, what I'm going to do is open up the floor rather to all of you to ask Dr. Klausli some questions. So I will start. Actually, it looks like we do have one. Um, let's see. Okay, so one question, Dr. Klausley. Give me 1 second. I just want to open this up. My uh, my screen got a little bit weird there. Okay. Okay, I apologize. Technical glitch on my end. Um, Dr. Klausley, is there a common question that you typically hear, or something that typically comes up from students that you'd like to address on your end as faculty?
Oh, that's a good question. I think we have a pretty big variety of questions depending on where people are coming from, right? We have a pretty large number of students in the general ministry sphere, quite a few priests, sisters, consecrated, people working in formation. So the self-design people have asked about, can we cater that to people who work in ministry settings? And definitely that's an option. People who want to take a second integrative class, right, where we're looking at flourishing in relationships, for example, from through the integrative lens, right, with theology, philosophy, people who are working with families, marriages. A lot of people really enjoy that. But then maybe they also want to take a skills class because they're interacting with people. They feel they need to grow in empathic listening. Well, if you do the self-design, you can really cater it to your ministry and work setting. So we have people ask about that and finding that very helpful to think through their possibilities. So there's maybe one area. That's other questions is always some questions about, I haven't studied online. This is really scary. How is it going to work? And I want to say, have no fears for what I would say right there. We have so many support systems in place. Our faculty work very closely with students. We meet one-on-one. We offer extra Zoom meetings. We talk on the phone. We have support, student support. We have great tech help. I mean, if you have an internet, a tech problem, we have a fantastic resource group there. So if that is a hesitation, I would say ask questions, probe, look into it. But I would say there's so much good support in place, and that you do not ever have to sit alone at home thinking, oh my word, what am I doing? How am I getting this done? And reaching out, there's so many possibilities. So
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up the support too, because I always like to share with students that I haven't seen any sort of struggle with our students that have had difficulty finding support. But I even tell the students that if they're having that difficulty getting in touch with them, at the very least, to hold on to my number just so that we can redirect them, and they always get that support that's needed. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. So there is another question too, which is the integrative component. So one question is, how will the integrative component of the program help in the workplace?
So that's a great question. So first of all, I want to say, so the integrative piece, from our perspective, is not so much content knowledge. We give content, of course, but it's more a formation approach to education and to knowing the person and to self-development, professional development. So the integrative piece, in my opinion, I love the integrative piece. I love doing psychology the way we do psychology. I got my doctorate at a big state school. Coming here and interacting with our philosophy theology guys and thinking, how can we understand the person better, right? How can we have this deeper understanding of the person that goes past either just psychology or just theology or just philosophy, right? I think bringing those pieces together opens that door for a deeper understanding on functioning, on behaviors, on emotions, thoughts. So when you interact with people, it doesn't matter if you're a CEO of a huge company or if you're a parish priest or a missionary somewhere in a third world country, coming with a deeper understanding of the person will make you more effective in dealing with people. I think also we come from a very strong view of seeing the person created in the image of God, and because of that, with a deep innate dignity, right? So looking for that peace in the person is such a hopeful, positive outlook, right? We have a whole realm of psychology is very disease-oriented, disorder-oriented, what's wrong, people, how do we fix what's wrong? And we come from a very much kind of aligning more closely with positive psychology, but coming from that view of the flourishing person, right? It's a very positive, hopeful outlook. And if you're working with people in the workplace, we've had people who are working at Silicon Valley as project managers. And they've come to us and say, we only know computers, we don't know people, help. So having that outlook, thinking of burnout prevention, thinking about helping people flourish who work for you, giving people transformational leadership is one of the pieces we teach, right? Helping the people come to their fullest potential to keep growing and learning, seeing the individual. I think those are all pieces that come out of this integrative approach of psychology. So I think it's very, very unique, and it's just adds a component that is very rich, and to me is a very hopeful, joyful way of working with people. That's maybe I think that's one piece I would bring to that.
Very
I'd love
well
to have more
said.
questions. If somebody has questions, love to have more questions on that as well.
Yeah, yeah. And the floor is still open. I do have another question, which is about the residency. So, if the residency happens to fall at a time that is impossible for the student to make, so for instance, if they have a wedding or there's an emergency that falls, um, it, what happens with the student? Is it possible for them to maybe approach a different time that would work for
Yeah.
them?
So great question. So the residency is mandatory. It's very important to us. However, if you cannot make it in course one, you can postpone it to the next time 550 is taught. So you can continue. So if you start fall one, you have a wedding, a family emergency, you can't make it, excuse me, then you can postpone, you can still take a class in fall two, and then and in spring one, and then you will take the residency in spring one. However, if you again want to postpone, at that point you will have to probably sit out spring two and then take it in the summer, because it really orients everybody into the program. I think it's a really essential component of meeting people, understanding the core outlook of the program. So that's why it is mandatory, but you can always postpone one round and take it the next time it's offered.
Very good. So another question is, what sort of reading material is provided to the students?
So a great range of reading material. We have probably media embedded in every single week of every single course. So you're watching some pre-recorded lectures, some other videos, some other media pieces. And then we have a pretty good mix of research articles, as well as integrative readings, as well as some textbook kind of reading. So we try to, Accreditation really loves the research article piece. So we have really added, because we want people to become experts, right? You're becoming an expert in the field. So being very comfortable with feeding yourself from the research literature is one of our goals, to be scientifically minded. So you got to be very comfortable. What does the research literature say about depression in adolescents, anxiety disorders in young adults, brain development, right? So we have that, but we always, every single course has at least one module where we look at integrative literature from the teachings of the church, Thomian literature, Augustine, right? Looking at philosophy as well as theology. How can we get a deeper understanding on human development, on social psychology, on even research and statistics, to add a deeper view on the topic? So we have that. And then we have some classes is more helpful to have a textbook as well. So statistics, we have normally some chapters of a textbook, because you just have to learn that language and genre. Social psychology, we use chapters of a textbook as well as research literature. So those are probably the three bigger areas of types of readings.
Great, very good. Well, that actually is, that concludes all of our questions, but I do want to highlight to all of the students here that if you're looking into applying for our next start date will be for the fall semester. That's going to start on August 17th. And the best time to apply is as early as possible, because there's still going to be an onboarding process, there's going to be your orientations, and the students that I've seen succeed the most, especially in their first semester, are those that have been admitted early so that they can actually get more acclimated to the APA writing style. They can become more familiar with the school. So I always encourage students that if you're looking to enter into the program, apply as early as you can. I guarantee you, you'll be so glad that you did, that you did apply as early as you did. So again, the contact information is there in front of you for Michelle Drennan. She will be serving as the admissions counselor along with Stephen Showalter.
Great. And
Yep.
Greg, as we're closing, I wonder, Michelle, working in alumni, might be great for her to share just a couple. We have incredibly wonderful alumni, literally on every single continent on this planet. So Michelle had mentioned she could share a couple stories of alumni if there's still a couple minutes. I think that would be a great way to close. Michelle, are
Yeah.
you still up for that?
I am, and thank you. Because I think what's been really nice for me in changing over to alumni relations is seeing everything go full circle, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, to see my students in every walk of life, and as Julia mentioned, it could be international, right here on our home scene. With a gentleman in New York who actually, gosh, he actually came out of the program way back, and he has formed one of the most incredible Planned Parenthood identities in his particular field, and he's nationwide. He's known nationwide. We did a story. I'm trying to do an alumni newsletter, and we did a story about one of our Nigerian graduates who was just amazing. I mean, she was in business, but she knew that in managing people at an HR, and this would be whether you're international or whether you're right here in the United States, required some very different skill levels than she really had. And you know, with everything that's been going on in our world with difficulties and COVID and all of that, to have that extra ability to handle those difficult situations. And it's kind of funny because she actually started out with she was a great brewery company, if you will, internationally, and is now going to be moving from Anheuser to the Netherlands in a very high level management position. And those are just a few of the stories. One of the joys, like Julia and Greg shared, if you're a teacher and you really want to go to that next level, having the opportunity to get your master's creates incredible opportunities for more money, for an advanced opportunity. And I think ultimately, and this is what I tell all master's in psychology students, having that particular credential, and many of our students are not spring chickens. You know, they come to us with a lot of wisdom. They're mature. They say, you know, I really want to go to my next level. And whether it's in the diocese or whether it's in a manufacturing firm or it's in healthcare or it's in criminal justice, one of the things I'm able to help you with, and for those of you that I work with over the next few weeks, I have not only the opportunity to tell you here's where it starts, but also this is where it ends. So I would look forward to talking to you. I'll call you if you have any questions. And thank you all for including me. And it's a great webinar. Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Dr. Julia.
All right. Well, thank
Thanks,
you
Greg.
all. Of course, thank you all for being here, and wish you all a great evening.